So welcome to this new channel for learning AI together. As part of this, we're going to go through a number of tutorials for AI. So we're going to start at the basics. So one tutorial I'd like to kind of show you today is basically having a basic Docker compose file. So if you don't know what a Docker compose file is, you can certainly read more about them and find out, the parts of an actual compose file. But in this compose file, I'll have a volume, which is called that. I'll have two ports for Ollama on this port. So you can think of these as an actual kind of gateway into our Ollama service. And I'll have a volume. And I'll call it that. And the reason I'm kind of naming these, like that is so that I can differentiate them. Because this is going to be number one. So what I've kind of done here is I've created as part of the actual notes number one here. So running Ollama on local LLM on Docker. So we're going to Dockerize Ollama and we're going to basically make sure that it's actually running an LLM in Docker. So what I need to do is, first thing I need to do is I need to go and check my notes, and I need to make sure that my brew install, I'm on a Mac, and make sure that my brew install Docker and Docker Compose is all up to date. So I'm just going to run that. I'm sure it is up to date, but yep, looks everything's kind of up to date right now. And I put some kind of Docker commands in here that you can kind of use. And if you don't know Docker, it's a really good way to kind of containerize, and then you could, use Kubernetes, after that. But just for today, basically we're going to have an Ollama service that's basically Dockerized, so that we can basically put it onto Kubernetes later on if we really wanted to. So I've created a folder. I've created if we kind of go to this folder here, you can sort of see that I actually have a Docker Compose. So if I kind of show you the Docker Compose file, you can sort of see that I have an image. So the image that we're going to basically use, so the actual container image is the Ollama. So that's the container image. So not to be kind of confused with models right now. So basically you could install Ollama directly onto your VM, but I want to kind of run it as an actual container. I'm going to use the container name, and I'm going to put _container after the name so that I can, understand that it's the actual container and like the volumes, as I said before. Okay, so I'm going to come out of this and I go back to my notes, and I'm going to make sure that, to run this, I'll have to do Docker Compose up -d. So I'll kind of do that. And this will kind of take a few moments because in my Docker desktop, which I already kind of have, I'm starting a fresh install here. So I have nothing installed here, of no volumes, of no images, of no containers. And again, if you don't actually know any of this, a good thing to do here is actually kind of go through this little command here. If you're kind of new containers and Docker, run through these kind of commands here, and they'll kind of set you up with a kind of small tutorial on containers. I'll also put at the end of the video a link to my other training sessions on Kubernetes, where I've done various certifications on Kubernetes. But right now, sort of today, you can actually sort of see that, the Docker desktop, we have nothing right now. And what's actually happening here is that the Docker Compose up is running, and it's pulling down this Ollama image. And the Ollama image itself is like 2.79 gig. So it's quite a big image itself, but you've got to remember that if you install this directly onto your VM, it could take up an awful lot more kind of space. So what I'm going to do is actually going to pause the video, and I'm going to come back to it when the actual Ollama image has been downloaded. So it's just about finishing up now. So what I'm going to basically do is I'm going to show you actual Ollama here. So this is the official Ollama documentation, and what it is it says it's the easiest way to get up and running with large language model LLMs. So you can actually go and pick a model that you want to try out, download, and just play with. Really, you could sort of see that there's different types of models that'll kind of go through one of the days. But right now, there's kind of different types of models that you can basically use for different functions and different activities. So you can just kind of download one of those models and you can kind of try it. So that's the kind of point of today's quick tutorial. So what we can do is we can actually kind of go back to our desktop now, and I can sort of see that I've got one container that's been started, and I've got one volume which has been created. So if I actually kind of also go over to my Docker desktop, I can actually sort of see that I have a green check mark here, which indicates that the actual container is running itself. Now here you can sort of see that it's actually running on port 11434. So when I kind of checked my compose file here, which is my configuration file, you can see that it's the same port that's actually kind of running here. So that is why that's running there. So I can kind of open this now. I can click on this here, and I can actually open it in a browser, and you can sort of see that it says Ollama is running. So this means that I've actually got the actual framework ready and running, that I could actually experiment with any other models, LLMs that I basically want to run. And this is also containerized, so it also means that it's not going to affect my computer by hogging massive resources of trying to run LLMs on my computer. But if I go now, I can actually sort of say, okay, so let me just kind of list out the models here to see if we've got any actual models. So just to kind of explain this command very quickly, what we're basically doing is in Docker, we're basically sort of saying, I want you to execute this command for this container, and I want you to run that command. So Ollama plus list. So I want to take this and I want to go there, and as you can sort of see right now, I actually don't have any models running in my Ollama. So this is just Ollama running in Docker here. So I don't actually have any kind of models right now running. So it means that I couldn't actually test anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to install a model into my Ollama. So remember, I had a container which I set up for Ollama, and Ollama is the CLI command that I need to run. And I have two ways to kind of do this. I can do like a run, I can do a pull. So this one here is actually going to do a pull of tiny Ollama, and tiny Ollama, I'm just going to kick this off, and then we'll kind of go and we'll find tiny Ollama. So as you can sort of see, it's starting to pull down the actual model here. So this is actually pulling down the model. So if I kind of go back here and search, if I kind of just kind of go back here and I go to my models here, you can sort of see there's all different types of kind of models, but which is what I was sort of saying. So if I sort of say Ollama, I can sort of see there's all different versions of Ollama type model here. And you've probably kind of heard of these in the AI world, but I can kind of come down and you can sort of see, I finally kind of get to like a tiny Ollama, and I can see there's all different types of kind of Ollama that I can kind of investigate with. But today, I'm just going to try the tiny Ollama because it's just, small little kind of test to sort of see, can we actually kind of interact with an LLM. So here I can kind of go back to my command line really quickly, and I can wait for this to kind of come down, and you can sort of see that it's pulling down this model here, and it's pulling it down into the container. So it's running, so Ollama is going to run tiny Ollama inside of my actual Ollama container. So it takes a little bit of head scratching at the start, but you get kind of used to it. And you can sort of see here's other kind of commands where you can kind of remove that tiny Ollama, and I can actually kind of switch the model. So I'm going to kind of leave those commands in to kind of play with, but I can now kind of run my Ollama. And just to be kind of clear as well, I could have just done run rather than the kind of pull, and the run would have done the pull at the same time. But I'll kind of go back here, and now what this is going to do is in my Ollama container, which is my Ollama running on my Docker here in my desktop, in my Docker desktop, I'm going to use this Ollama command here to run tiny Ollama. And what's actually going to happen here is I should be able to send the model tiny Ollama a message, which I can. So I get a CLI, which is really, really cool. So it's a kind of quick way to kind of test this and actually sort of see. So I want to say hello, and now I'm actually interacting with this tiny Ollama and you can sort of see it again, it's running in Docker, so it's containerized. It's going to run a little bit kind of slower because, my computer is running other resources. So, but it's not running too slow. But I want to sort of say, I want to test this tiny llama model, please. Okay, so it says I want to test this model, and here's the model actually bringing back to you how you could actually kind of test this. Now this is this is why I love live recordings as well, because you never know what you're basically going to get, but you can sort of see it's brought me back something here, right? And I was kind of testing this earlier on, and I didn't look anything kind of like that, but so let's change the prompt to this prompt. Let's just, so every time that you kind of interact with a large language model, you have to give it a prompt. So what I sort of said was I want to test this tiny llama model, please. And here I sort of say I want to test a llama model, which is probably going to it's probably going to give me the same, which it actually is. But I mean, long story short is I can sort of say also something like tell me what is Docker. So it says, sure, I'd be happy to help. Docker is a containerization tool that allows developers and organizations to build and run applications in isolated environments, right? And you could kind of continue, and it'll kind of, show you how to kind of set up your first Docker image and get up and running with Docker. But long story short, that's how, we're actually interacting now with that model. We're actually interacting with the model itself. So, I can sort of see that if I kind of go back in here to my Docker, I can sort of see I have my image. So the Ollama image is going to run. I'm going to create a container inside of for the Ollama image, and I'm going to create a volume, and I'm going to create the ports. And basically that's the first tutorial. So it's just about kind of getting a little bit kind of set up on your own kind of system. Thank you.